Okay, so let's look at the course progress very briefly. So this is CG Art 1. Okay, it's really just to make a foundation for those of you who want to continue with CG Art. So maybe this course is not as fulfilling for a lot of you who really just want to get started doing artworks because there's a lot of foundational things that we have to cover. So, but trust me, this is crucial if you do want to do any sort of CG art. If you want to be doing sculpting or uh, any sort of pipeline, you do need a thorough understanding of the basics of modeling and asset creation. So how many are completely new to Maya, like never opened Maya? So that's the vast of almost everyone. All right, so that's perfect. This is really geared towards you who have never opened Maya before. It will be interesting. It's there's a lot to cover. So it's sort of geared towards getting you up and running very quickly without scaring you away, hopefully. I don't know. We'll see. All right. So today, what we're going to do, we're just going to get an introduction to Maya. Since you've never opened Maya, we're going to open it. We're going to open it. We're going to talk about the user interface. We're going to talk about perspective versus orthographic cameras. We're going to talk about camera navigation inside of Maya. How do you actually move around? Then we're going to make some polygonal objects, and we're going to move them around. We're going to talk about how you can manipulate objects and also the components of the polygonal primitives. Then scene structure, naming, and we're going to also look at how you can actually set up a basic material. How can you alter the color, you know, stuff like that. And then how do you actually get an image out of Maya? How can you make a render, what we call it? That's it for today. And then the assignment today. So you might notice these training assignments, they're not mandatory. I don't mandate you to do them, but of course the lab sessions are. So in effect, these training assignments are really meant you're supposed to do them. Going on here. All right. Then next week, we'll continue on with polygonal modeling. We'll look at how you can actually work with symmetry, which is very important. Proper workflows for symmetrical modeling. How you can correctly orient your mesh, your model. We're going to look at how you can spot errors. Like when you model, a lot of errors happen. Something you have to address, and you have to fix it. So that's going to be a lot of next time. We're going to start looking at the modeling tools next time. What do we mean by quad base? Like, we want to keep everything quads. Okay, so I'm bombarding you with all these terms. Let's not, but let's hurry up here. All right, then blah blah blah. More modeling. We look at subdividing, which is crucial. So basically, polygonal modeling. The first couple of weeks here. Then we switch gears to UV mapping, which is a process you have to do before you start texturing. UV mapping just means making the 3D object flat, making a flat version of the 3D object so that we have a reference to texture. Okay, that's what that means. So this week will be purely about understanding UV mapping, how to properly set up UV layouts, how to avoid texture distortion, all of that. Then the week after that, we'll even more UV mapping, but we'll look at another software called Hedis UV Layout Pro, which is very efficient for UV mapping. Then this lecture I'm a little unsure of because there's really not enough time in this course to be doing this. We'll see. I might. So this plan is subject to change. It might change a little bit, but my hope is that we'll get to cover some physically based materials. It shouldn't be that. It's actually okay. I think we'll do it. Talk about specular versus metallic workflow. Just really so you get a quick look at texturing. But don't worry too much about this. It might seem daunting. I don't know. It's okay. You'll be fine. As long as you show up for the lab sessions and for the lectures, you're good. It's really about showing up. Really. So that's what I see every year. For those of you who show up, it's fine. Or I've never done this course before, so this is a brand new course. I usually have another course that I do, but this is the first time we do this. CG Art 1. Uh, so that's also why I'm saying this plan is subject to change because it's the first time we do it. All right. Any questions about the course progress? Pretty straightforward. 8 weeks we'll be here. 7 lectures. Okay. All right. Pretty fast forward. You will be working. You do need to put in the hours. All right. Questions? Yes. Yeah. Yeah. So surfacing is just it's texturing. So surfacing is just another word for texturing. Really, it's just a little bit more encompassing because texturing sounds like you're only doing like textures. But sorry about this. This is horrible. But surfacing, we're actually working with the materials. We're thinking about the reflection, the specular values, all these other things that comes into material and surface response. Yep. We won't actually. Well, we might be doing a bump map for the hell of it, but for for this course, we're not actually going to be doing normal mapping, and we're not going to be doing that. So it's really straightforward. We do the model, we do the UV layout, we do the basic texturing, and then we're done. All right. You're welcome. All right. Any other questions? Yep. To Rhino? Oh, I don't know Rhino, but all the 3D softwares have a lot of similarities. So there's these discussions every year to what software should you use. Uh, yeah, the thing with Maya is that it's a safe bet. In the industry, if you know Maya, you're good. And then a lot of people use 3D Studio Max. A lot of game companies also. Typically, you can choose a little bit actually in the bigger studios. You know, and depending on the pipeline, you might have to learn migrate between different softwares. But that's forgiving once you understand all what we're going to be going through here. Even though we're using Maya, is applicable in Max or Rhino, I'm sure, or whatever. Yeah. Yeah. Questions? I assume not, because I think there's 2015 here when I checked. So yeah, we could have been using Maya 1.0 for what we're going to be doing. It doesn't matter. All right, seriously, we we'll be fine. All right. Oh, that would be good though. Good. Um, not that I've tried it, but I hear good things. I hear good things. Yeah. So Maya 2016, they've gotten quite a big upgrade with their user interface and everything. So, anyways, so you might see me being a bit lost then if it's 2016. So that's good. Always interesting. Okay, all right. So let's not get. We'll get back to this. And then there's a mandatory. Obviously, mandatory one. You're going to do a concept for a simple CG asset. Basically, the mandatory thing here is that you're doing one optional CG asset. Okay, so it could be anything, but you need to start doing research into what sort of an asset you'd like to do. And based on that research, you could do your own concept if you want. You don't have to do your own concept. You can also find external concept art uh, whatever. It's not really a concept art class. So if you find external concept art, you'd like to do this, or even another CG asset, I'm very forgiving with this. It's fine. Just as long as you have something that you'd like to do, that's the main thing. Okay. So, anyways, yeah. So, based on that simple concept, we'll be able to tell whether or not it's too simple or too advanced or whatever for you to do in this class. All right. So that's by week 37. By that Friday, you need to have that decided. So you might want to start looking at some references. Start looking at some sites. I'll post a lot of websites. You should make it a habit to visit. So CG Art, the CG Society, CG Channel, ZBrush Central, Deviant Art, Concept Art, all these sites and others. So, and also if you have some suggestions for the class, if you could post it in your Facebook groups or something, it's always helpful if you have some good references. The main thing is you start looking at references and getting inspired. Yeah, that's a big thing. What else? Okay, today, intro, Maya. Uh, Oh yeah, so Karina, she is the TA today, later on in the lab. If ever you need to get a hold of hers or contact info. And Martin is tomorrow, and you can also get a hold of him. So they're at your disposal mainly during those lab hours, but I'm sure you could contact them also. And me, I'm also available if you have questions. All right. So blah blah blah. We'll do this. UI will navigate. We'll look at. I told you this already. Okay. So the assignment today for later. Let me just mention this right away, so you can start thinking about this during the lecture. So you're going to be doing a city today using only polygonal primitives. Okay. So we're not going to be doing any modeling tools or anything. You're just going to be using primitives, but you're going to be altering their components. So you will get to understand what that means. You will use the outliner. It's a way to group objects and create a structure within the scene. And that's basically it. And you'll make some materials. So you can have a green ground. You can have different colored buildings. And you'll add some Maya lights and do a simple render. Okay, so for someone who's never opened Maya before, this will require your attention later, and preferably now. Okay, cool. Let's just get started with Maya. Yeah, currently it seems 2015 is here. It's really fine. Well, the navigation, everything we'll be talking about they've changed quite a bit to the UI though, to be fair. So we might have to do a run through once we have 2016 up and running or 2017. Okay, but let's just talk about the UI here. So the first thing we could do is to go to the display option. Then we'll find UI elements. So here are all the different user interface elements. So that's all the windows you see. So I could turn everything off. Now I'm basically left with the perspective view. So there's nothing. Okay, so let's talk about these. So there's the status line up here. Different snapping functions. Here's the render view that we're going to be talking about. This is a very important menu. You can change between various settings. So for the modeling part, obviously we're going to be spending most of our time inside polygons. And I think in 2016 they no longer make this distinction between polygons and surfaces. You'll find it all in modeling. But anyways, for now, we're going to be in polygons. If you're doing animation, which we're not going to be doing, you will be in animation. There's whole different menu sets. So if you change this one, that will change the menus over here. So all these menus. So here's a whole other world for animation, right? So there's a lot of menus, a lot of buttons, a lot of stuff. But we'll be mostly in here, looking at these tools. So there's the shelf. That's basically just a quick button menu set to access the tools. So all of the tools are available in the menu set. So you can go up here. I could do, let's make a cube. So polygonal primitives, cube. And if I go up to create polygonal primitives cube, you can see that at the bottom it says interactive creation. Let me tear this menu off. This little line lets me tear the menu off, so I can just leave it here, just like I did with this one. So as long as this interactive creation is on, when I hit cube, it's going to say drag the base on the grid, then pull up for height. So I have to make the base, and then I pull up for the height. Right, so now I have the cube. So I don't typically like that too much because it's not very accurate. So I just always turn off that interactive creation. So now when I hit the cube, it's just going to create the cube at whichever value is set for this cube primitive. So let's look at how you can set values for the primitives. If I go to create cube, and I go to this option box. So whenever you see there are all these little boxes in Maya, you'll see them everywhere. No, not everywhere. A lot of places. There's these boxes. Click them, and you'll get into the options for that function. So this is the polygonal cube option. You can see that the width, height, depth is set to 111. These are the measurements of the cube. Apply. There's the cube. So that's the default cube in Maya, 1 by 1 by 1 unit. So what are the units? What are the units? The units are centimeters. Okay, and how can we tell? If we go to the settings preferences, and we go to settings, I believe, are not, yeah, all right. So settings, working units, linear centimeter. That means 1 unit is 1 centimeter. We could change it to meter, but don't. Leave it to centimeter, okay? So depending on the pipeline though, but for our pipeline, leave this to centimeter. If your technical director tells you to change it to meter, then change it to meter. But for the most part, you'd leave that to centimeter. So that means whenever we're creating this, that's a very tiny cube, right? Very tiny. Because rarely are we making 1 centimeter cubes. Usually we're modeling something a little bit larger. So let's talk about that later. Let's not worry too much about the measurement right now. But we would have to actually extend this grid, and yeah, let's do that later. For now, for this whole city, just leave this. Don't worry too much about the centimeter. Blah blah blah. All right. Okay. We can also make our own shelves. So here are all these are the polygons, the shelf for the polygons. So you see there's all these primitives. These are the same primitives as these ones. So there's the sphere, the cube, cylinder, cone, plane. So Maya just gives you these pre-made meshes for you to start modeling with. So these are the ones you're going to be using today when you're working with your city. So I can make a sphere. Now it looks like they're on top of each other, which they are. Make more. So you see they're all just gather up in there, and I can make several cubes. Now it becomes very, oops. Now it's getting messy, right? They're all in there. What's going on? How can I, what can I do? I can select them, but I can't really see how many they are. It's very confusing. All right, so let's look at the outliner. This is the outliner. Outliner, window outliner. This is a very nice and easy way to have a full view of whatever's going on in your scene. So at the top, you'll see we have 4 different cameras. We're going to talk about that later. They're grayed out, so you can't really do anything to them. These are the default stuff that's in here. You also have these 2 down here, the light sets. Don't worry about, and the object set. Don't worry about those. They're always here. But see these? These are different. These are all the polygonal objects in our scene. So if I can also select them from here. So I went crazy. I made a lot of primitives. They're all here. I can just click in the outliner, and they're selected. Right. So very important outliner that we'll be using that a lot today. Structuring everything. I can also just hit backspace, delete everything. Now the outliner, you see only the stuff that's left is the default stuff. Okay. Okay, surfaces. Let's not talk about that right now. Curves, general, all these things. So let's stick to polygons for now. But we can also make our own shelves. So this little button, this little arrow, I can click and I can make a new shelf. New shelf. And I can call it Jules. Okay. And there's my new shelf. It's empty. Why would I need an empty shelf? Because I can fill it with whatever I want. So if I always make a cube, maybe I'll just add that function to my own little shelf. So I Control Shift click and it's added. And I can do that with anything. So if all these tools that we're eventually going to be using for a way for you to remember maybe gradually, okay, which tools am I currently learning? You can keep adding them to your shelf. Okay, so now, next time we're going to start looking at extrude. So this one, Control Shift click. Now that function is there. So, but I don't want it there right now. How do I get rid of it? I can middle mouse button click and drag, and I can drag it over here to the trash. See that trash? No, you can't really see it, but it's there. Okay, so that's how you can make your own shelves. There is also a way to make your own hotkeys. I'm just going to mention this because this will save you a lot of time. We just have to talk about all these things once. So settings, preferences. Hotkey editor. We'll try this again by just mentioning it. So if for some reason you wanted a hotkey to make a cube, you could do that. You could find it in here. I don't have a hotkey for that, but you'd have to go and have a little bit of time, so you will find it. There's a lot in here because you can make hotkeys for anything, right? So it becomes a lot. That really sums up Maya. There's a lot going on because there's a lot of opportunity for customization. So that's maybe one of the benefits of Maya versus a lot of other softwares. It seems clunky, it's very heavy, it seems unnecessarily, maybe a little old-fashioned, but it's very, very customizable. All right. Okay, so create cube, yeah, create polygonal cube, right? So then I can ask my, so is there a hotkey for this? So I go query. Oh no, that's not right. This is to ask. Hang on. So all right, whatever. Let's do this again later. But if I control, control C, let's say, oh, I want control C to be able to make a cube. So I hit control C. Now it's going to make a cube. But I have to ask Maya if that's okay. If there might be something else assigned to control C. So I query it. I ask, oh, no, that's, of course, that's copy selected from edit. Maybe you never use copy selected from edit. I don't. So I could overwrite it. Okay, but you have to know a little bit what you're doing for this. But a lot of the buttons are not really assigned to anything. So you'll probably find some hotkeys. Yeah, question. Hopefully not. It should follow your user. I mean, depending on depending on the setup. So here at the university, who knows? But when you're working, it will follow your user. So it should follow your user here as well. But I can't really 100% guarantee it. I think it will. I think it will. Yeah, I'm pretty sure it will. It depends on the way it's configured, everything. There's a lot of security concerns that IT has here in a university, so it's a little bit different. It's not always because they can't set something up, but sometimes we can't because there's security concerns. Yeah. But anyways, I think it will follow your user. Yeah, it should. Okay. So feel free to ask any questions anytime. That's perfect. That's why we're here. All right. All right. Moving on. What else? So that's the shelf. That's how you can make your own. That's your hotkeys and whatever. So time slider, range slider. These are for animation, right? Down here, there's a time slider, range slider. We won't be talking about that at all. I think no, probably not. Maybe not. But so we can leave them off. We don't need them. Let's not have them there because they're taking up our real estate. So we'll remove them. There's a command line. You can enter MEL. What is MEL? MEL is Maya Embedded Language. MEL is Maya's code language. Or you can change it to Python, which is a universal programming language. It's very much in use in the gaming industry or VFX industry as well. All right. Helpline. This will display a little help to whatever it is that you're doing. So if you're in here, it says, oh, this creates a polygonal cylinder on the grid. That's helpful. So there's a little helpline. Might be helpful. Toolbox. Let's talk about that later. Attribute editor. So this is very important. Let's create a cube again. This is the attribute editor. So you saw I found it over here in the UI elements, right there. And now it's starting to look more familiar because the UI elements are back. But it's also over here, and actually it's on Control A, which is kind of important hotkey, Control A, because that will let you toggle between the attribute editor and the channel box. Okay. So for these lectures, there's a lot of information coming your way, and you're not really able to immediately try it. Okay. But I think, in my experience, what you should do now is just take all of this in without necessarily worrying too much about remembering everything. You could take some notes. There are some studies showing that if you take notes, it helps you to remember, even though you're not going to look at those notes again. It's helpful. But you don't have to take notes. I'm recording this. But anyways, I'm just saying, if you feel like, oh my God, there's that. No, it's okay. It's okay. Don't worry. Just look at it, then you'll get to try it. All right? Okay. All right. Anyways, Control A, you can toggle between attribute editor and the channel box. The attribute editor is very important. It has all the settings for anything you select. So if I wonder anything about this cube, there's a lot of information about this cube in the attribute editor. So we have its transform attributes. You know, these are its translation values, its rotational and scale values. We have the pivot, we have world space, local, and all this information about the cube. There are all these things. And also we can find its material. So if anything about anything that's currently selected will be in the attribute editor. Okay, very important. So Control A will let me toggle between channel box and the attribute editor. The channel box looks like this. So that's a very much an abbreviation of the attribute editor, but it just shows some of the world position numbers. So everything is zeroed out, 0, 0, 0, 0, except for the scale. The scale is set to 1. So because if the scale were set to 0, it will disappear. Right? It's like 0 scale doesn't exist, so it needs to be 1. So the default scale is always 1. So here I can just select multiple values and hit a number, and that will update. All right. How can I move this cube around? So so that's our little first look at the UI, all the different elements in the user interface. Obviously, we'll look at that again and again and again, and you'll get used to it. But so the point here is you have to just start getting familiar and comfortable in Maya. So let's look at how we can move these objects around. So we opened up the tool settings. They're over here. We're now in the selection tool. So that's just like I can select things. Okay. I can select things. I can hit this one that will let me move things around. I can hit this one that will let me rotate. And I can hit this one that will let me scale. You're never going to do this because you will have your left hand placed on Q, W, E, and R. Okay? And then you will toggle. This is very much about getting comfortable in Maya, working efficiently. You cannot be doing this. No. No, no, no. Don't do it. So QWER, right? That's that. So and eventually that becomes like second nature. You don't think about it. You just do it. Okay. All right. And my thumb is placed on the Alt button. On my left hand, my thumb is placed on the Alt key. Because when I hit the Alt and I'm in this, whatever tool you're in, doesn't matter. I can click left mouse button and it will rotate. But if I don't hit Alt, it will just do this, which is boring. But I can hit Alt and I can rotate using left mouse button. I can move around using the middle mouse button. I can go and dolly in and out using the right mouse button. So you see I can move very quickly around. This also becomes second nature. You don't think about it. Right? So I'm holding Alt with my thumb and I'm using the 3 mouse buttons. It will feel clunky at first because you never tried it, and then after a couple of weeks, this will be, you're just flying around. Okay. So we're going to move this thing around. I'm going to hit W for the move tool, so it moved down here. How do we move it? Well, you can grab one of these axes, so there's the XYZ axis. We can pull the Y, which is the height, and move it only in the y-axis. You can see the translate y value will update. So this adheres to the coordinate system, the values. Remember, they're 1 centimeter, right? So this is an indication of where the pivot point is in world space. The pivot point is that point, the center of this of that. That's the pivot point. I can also just grab the pivot point. You can see I can grab it in the middle. That I can move it arbitrarily, just move it around. And then you see all these values will update. And then I go, no, I want it back. No, what do I do? I can go up here and I can hit 0 and it'll go back. I can also do translate y 1, 2. Right. So this is an indication of where this is in the world. Okay, let's just mention the snapping functions. They're up here. I can click here. This will activate snap to grid. You will not do that. You will hit X, snap to grid. So we have XCV, which are also right next to each other on the keyboard. I can hit X and I can keep snapping. This is to snap to grid. And you can see when I hit X, this highlights, so it becomes active. Snap to the grid. We're going to be, so you see, it's like entering it numerically, but just more quickly. I can also move it up incrementally just using the snapping. All right. So that's snap to grid, and there's also snap to curve. We could, if we had a curve, and there's snap to point, which we'll be using when we're looking at the components. But they're all on X, C, or V. All right. Okay. So that's how you move things around. That's how you can reset it. And I can also just snap it back to the middle. If I hold X, so I'm in Move Tool, right? I'm in the Move Tool. I'm holding X. I'm activating Snap to Grid, and I can actually hold middle mouse button, and it will snap to wherever I point. People leaving already? It's getting boring. All right, we'll have a break in 2 minutes. All right, right? Okay, so let's just continue talking about the move thing before we take a break. All right, rotate. I'm clicking E. I'm in rotate tool. I can also arbitrarily move it around if I just click in here and just moving it around. You see all the rotational values update. Okay, I can reset 0. Or I can grab one of the axes. So I can rotate around. So you have to think about this. This is like rotating around the axis. So I'm rotating around the x-axis right now. Right? You can see rotate x is updating. Or I'm rotating around the z-axis. Okay? Or I'm rotating around the y-axis, 45 degrees. No, zero it out. Okay. That's rotate. And then there's scale. Hit R. So I can hit the middle one to rotate uniformly, so all the axes at once. That's the yellow one in the middle, and you see all these update the precise same amount. You can hit 4. 1, back to 1. I can also start scaling just one of the axes at a time. Right? This axis, this axis, this axis. What I don't want to do is start scaling in negative values. We can. I can just keep scaling, 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 and invert it. So it says minus, minus. Doesn't seem like a big deal, and it isn't really. Sometimes we do it, but typically you don't want to do it without intentionally doing it because you're flipping the normals. Okay, so yeah, we'll talk about that later. Anyways, that's that. Okay, let's meet back here at 10:30. If you want to get a coffee or something. Oh, and sign this attendance sheet. Okay, so then we looked at how we can manipulate objects. So people in front can't see. Can you see? All right. So you guys are gonna have to hold on till after to sign in. I'm sorry, because people can't see. All right. So in terms of manipulating and moving the objects around, let's talk about the polygonal components. Okay. Right now, if we right-click and I hold right mouse button, I can access different components. So there's object mode, that's the mode that it just defaults to, and it means I can just, when I select something, I'm selecting the entire object. So what I'm actually manipulating is the object's translate node, transform node. Okay, it's just a node in Maya deciding the placement of the object. All right. So if I move the object around, the channel box indicates, like we were saying, the placement of the pivot point. There is actually a way to move this geometrical data up the same amount without changing or affecting the transform node, this node, right? I can actually grab the vertices and move them up. And now if I go to object mode, you see this hasn't changed because the pivot point hasn't changed. So I can rotate it around. Now it has a new pivot. I can scale it towards the pivot. So everything is around, everything's about the pivot. Right mouse button, click and hold. So let's look at the components. We have the edges, which are the edges. I can single click select them or marquee select. So depending on your settings, the way this is set up, I think if you double click on this, it will open the tool settings for also for the selection tool. So if you reset this, it will go back to default, which sometimes you might need to do if things aren't behaving properly. Just remember that you can double click here and reset the tools. But essentially, the default is that you do it will just select through. So if I go like this with a marquee selection, it's going to select all those edges that are in the marquee, even back here, even the one I can't see. Just selects through everything. So, same for the vertices. So those are the edges. Let's look at the vertices. So vertex point, vertices is the plural form. Vertex, you have all these points. Same thing, if I just selection marquee select, it's going to select also the one on the back. I can tumble around. Okay, so it's also selected. So when we're doing this, it's helpful if we're able to see straight through the object, right? So we can hit number 4. That's the wireframe mode. So inside the panel here, I can hit 4 or 5 to toggle between wireframe or shaded mode. So that makes it very easy to see if I'm selecting vertices. So I can select, I can also hit Control and drag a marquee selection that will deselect. If I hit Shift, I will add to the current selection. So Shift and Control to add or subtract from the selection. Yeah, so anyways, one more thing. If I hold Shift and I want to add this, right, if I hold Shift, okay, if I hold Shift and I do this, see it's going to deselect those and add that, all right? Let's try again. So I want to add this, but I don't want to deselect this. So you can actually do Control Shift marquee selection. That will keep the current selection, but keep adding to it. So it's one of those little efficiency things that you have to just try. So Control Shift, you will add to the selection without subtracting because you're holding Control at the same time. All right. Anyways, so that's vertices, edges, and faces. So faces is just Maya's word for polygons. So these are all the polygons. So you can see I can select it, and polygons are planes, right? That's what makes this mesh. So when we're doing polygonal modeling, everything is about the polygons. Currently, I can only select whole faces like this. There is one setting that I like to activate that's for some reason no longer the default. But if you go to the preferences, settings, or not settings, selection, I believe. Selection, I can select faces with center. Okay, save. Doesn't seem like a big deal. Or, Maya is too buggy for this. All right, hang on. They keep changing these in different versions, and sometimes there are leftovers that no longer make sense. But let me just try this. Oh yeah, so it makes total sense. So the point with the point selection is that I can go like this, and it will only select those faces because those are the only face centers I'm actually selecting. So it makes it a little quicker because if I want to select multiple faces without, the least efficient thing would be click shift click, right? Least efficient. It works, but what I want to do, I can toggle over here, just drag that selection marquee, and we'll only select those because those are the only face centers that I'm actually selecting. Even though my marquee selection is covering a lot of other polygons, they're not being selected. So you can work a little bit more efficient by having the selection set to face centers. So this class is all about modeling, asset creation. So we're not going to touch any other part of the software, so which gives us a little bit more time to nerd out about how to get more efficient at modeling, right? So that's why I'm taking the time to show you this. Anyway, so I highly suggest that you do that. Just it will speed things up just a little bit. And if you wanted to, for some reason, still be able to select whole face centers, there's the multi-tool. The multi-tool is just, it allows you to select any component. So I can still select face centers just like this, or I'm sorry, whole polygons like this, or vertices or edges. So typically when I'm working though, I don't really use the multi-tool too much. So this will also become second nature because this is just one of the many gesture-based menus inside of Maya. So if I wanted to quickly add vertices, I'll just go like that. Object mode, face mode, edge mode. So I'm just right-clicking briefly and I'm gesturing where I want to go. Okay? There is one instance where that's not so efficient. So again, if I make copies of this cube, so Control D, I'm just making copies, Control D, Control D. Sometimes we have multiple objects. I want to do, I want to change the components for all these objects. So then I would have to go right-click vertex, right-click vertex, right-click vertex, right-click vertex. Very inefficient. I don't want to do that. Object mode, object mode, object mode, object mode. So thankfully, the F8 through F12 on your keyboard, they will change the components. So this is also very important for you to just get used to. So F8, let's see. F8 is object mode. Yeah. So I could probably go back into the settings and reconfigure the hotkeys and make sure that Camtasia is not occupying them, but it doesn't matter. So F8 through F12 change the components. Okay, so same thing for the components though. If I start manipulating, I can move them around. I can move one vertex at a time. I can also scale them towards each other. So a lot of times it's more helpful scaling. So if I wanted to move these against each other, obviously I would just scale them towards each other in that axis. So this could be a roof for the polygonal city that you're doing. So this is what I want you to do today, right? This is just experiment with the primitives and try to manipulate things. Just envision some shapes in your head. Just like, okay, maybe this could be. That's all I want you to do. Just try this. So I could also alter that shape by selecting the face, right? And scaling it. It's the exact same thing. I could also even scale the edges towards each other. The same thing. But typically, what's easiest probably when we're modeling is just select the vertices. A lot of times, the vertices is the quickest. I think you'll find. Okay. Control D, I can duplicate like I showed you. All right. Anyways, should we just try? I don't know if there's anything else I need to mention right now. Just remember that vertices, the vertex points, they're really often the ones you should consider altering. Like if you're trying to achieve a shape, often the vertices you can more quickly arrive at a solution, right? And then you see I'm toggling just quickly object mode whenever I want to move this in object mode. And then this will update. So, all right, let's talk about that pivot point, how we can change it. I can hold D. Then I can change it. So you see I'm moving the arrow, but it's not updating anything. It's just moving that pivot point. So now I'm in object mode. I'm moving the pivot point. So another way in effect to move the pivot point is moving the vertices, right? Like we did earlier. Because I'm not moving this object's transform node, I'm only moving the vertices. So I'm going to go back to object mode. The pivot point is still there. Okay, does that make sense? In object mode, it's a separate node I'm moving around, which is this one. In vertex mode, I'm moving the vertices, not the transform node. And then the pivot, again, hold D. I can just grab the axis and change it. So if I hold D, now we're going to combine a couple of techniques. So I hold D, I'm going to snap, but this time I'm not going to snap to grid. I'm going to snap to points. So I can hold D and I can hold V to snap to point. So I'm holding D and I'm holding V. And now I can snap this pivot point around. So I can like move over here and snap it to this vertex. I can move over here, snap it, snap it, snap it. So by leaving it there, just letting go of D and V, now I can actually, if I want, for some reason, if I wanted this to be the origin of the scale or whatever it is that I'm doing, rotate, it will rotate from that pivot. Whenever I want to pivot back to the center of any object, there's a feature called modify center pivot. That's the mathematical center of the object. So it might not be the center you envision, but it just calculates the average of all the vertices. So, but Control Shift click, I will add it to the shelf. So for a cube, the mathematical center will be the exact center. So it's going to be right there in the middle again. And then how do I get it back to the center of the grid? I can, because now I haven't actually moved, you see, I haven't actually moved the transform node. I was moving the vertices around. I've been moving the pivot point around. So I can't just reset this by clicking 0. I have to actually snap, I can just snap this back, right? It's in the center of the cube. How do I get it back here? I'm not going to hold V this time because that's snap to point, but I'm going to hold X and middle mouse button and snap it back. So now these are not zeroed out anymore. And then there's another feature called modify freeze transformations. So these are, the most important ones. Center pivot, freeze transformations. You just want to make sure you have those in your arsenal. You know what you're doing. So Control Shift click, I can add that to the shelf. Freeze transformations will reset this. Now it's zeroed out. Now it's where I want it. If I move it, I can just hit 0. I can rotate it, whatever, go crazy. All these zero out will be back to its origin. So that's kind of important to be aware of when you're starting to get things organized, when you're building your primitive city today. When you have objects placed where you want them to be, it could be a good idea to actually go in here and freeze the transformations so that you can just zero them out to get them back to where you want them to be. If you don't do that, sometimes it can cause some trouble. Like it could lead to things being all over the place if you're migrating between different versions of Maya. Strange things happen. So it's a very good habit to reset these settings. Another thing is you see down here in the channel box. So this is what we're talking about. We can toggle between the channel box and the attribute editor. Let's stay in the channel box. You see down here in the inputs. This is everything that you're doing to the object. It creates this history. Sometimes we need to go back in the history and tweak some settings, but very rarely. Typically, we need to just get rid of that history. So there's edit, delete by type history. I can Control Shift click and add that to the shelf. So you see that gets rid of this. That's also very important. If you don't do that and you have lots of history, it can also lead to artifacts when we try to open your scene. It's very important. So if you have an assignment and you save the scene and you open it and it's all exploded, or typically it might be that you didn't delete the history, all these things. So this is important, keeping structured. All right, any questions? Yeah. How do you lock an object? Okay, so that's a good question. So you're happy with this placement, you just want to lock it. You can lock these values. So if you just select them, like I'm just left mouse button clicking, even the scale ones, I can right click and lock select. That's locking this object's transform node, right? So now if I try to move it, I cannot. So that's one way of doing that. And I can also unlock again. So just right click the values, unlock, and they're back. There's also the display layers. It's not really locking it in place, but it helps. It's down here in the channel box as well. So this button is like create a new layer and assign selected object. So this one being selected is going to be added. I can turn it off. It's not gone from my scene, but it's not visible. So this one means visible or not. So this would help having access to the outliner, because you might freak out because you think, oh no, it's all gone. But no, it's here. It's just not visible. But you can select it from the outliner. So remember, the outliner is where you will find things. Okay. And then you could go in here and you can turn this into a referenced object. This one. So this is like a templated one. This is a referenced object. So it's there, but you can't select it. Right. Can select it here though. Then I can move it. But so that might be helpful, like display layers. Okay, let's delete this one. Now it's just gone. It's just a display thing. Doesn't really affect your content. Okay. Any other questions? I can alter the background. I can hit Alt B. Alt B. I typically like this one. So let's go back to the outliner. Let's start making sense of this. Okay, so what I was doing, I was changing the pivot point and everything. Well, let's say I wanted to place this cube on the grid. Okay, there are some snapping tools and things that we could do, but what I will do now is just very simple. I'll hold D, I'll hold V, I'll snap the pivot point down to the bottom vertices. So this is maybe a little different from what I did earlier. You see, I'm holding D just to change the pivot. I'm holding V, but I'm not snapping to any one of the single vertices. Instead, I'm pulling the pivot point along the y-axis. So it's just going to move along the y-axis, only up and down. But then I'm also holding V, meaning it's going to find vertices along that axis. So wherever it finds vertices along the y-axis is going to snap. So that means I could snap to the bottom vertices like that, still having the pivot point in the middle, but aligned to the bottom vertices. Okay, so D and V. And then I can use this pivot point just holding X this time, snap to grid. I can snap that to the grid. Right? Makes sense? And then I can center the pivot. So again, DV X center pivot. All right. Okay, let's talk about orthographic cameras versus perspective cameras. So this is a perspective camera, like our eyes, and we're used to observing the world this way. Let's go to this one, view select camera. This will actually select the camera and display it over here in the channel box. So remember, anything that's currently selected will show up in the channel box or the attribute editor. So Control A, you can toggle between the attribute editor and the channel box. Attribute editor, what we were saying earlier, has all the information about anything you select. So I could also select it here from the outliner. Again, remember, outliner, you can find anything. Here is the perspective camera. So you can see that blah, blah, blah. There's a focal length of 35. If you wanted more of a wide telephoto lens thing, you could do. You see, there's less perspective. If I go 35, I can make a wide, like fisheye thing. If you wanted to do compositions like this. So of course this matters to your final composition. Typically when we're working, we'll leave this between 35 and 50, which is just more natural sort of. I just leave it at 35 usually. So that's the perspective camera. But we have others. So you see here in the outliner, we have a top camera. It's a Maya camera. It's just that this one does not have perspective. It's lacking one of the axes. To see all the orthographic cameras, we can just hit spacebar. So, or click here. So we can also toggle between the one panel layout or four panel layout. These are different layouts. Let's go back to the single panel layout. See here, panels. These are all the different panels. So we have orthographic cameras. We have all these things. We could turn this thing into anything, this panel. All right, blah, blah, blah. Four panel layout with three orthographic cameras and one perspective camera. So let's look, for instance, at the front. So the front, well, let's get back to this. What is the front and what is not? Let's create a sphere. Okay. So I have a sphere. Let me go back here, just hitting spacebar. I want to copy that sphere. Let me just snap it over here. Let me make another copy. Snap it over there. Make another copy. Snap it over there. I have a few spheres. So if I look over here, obviously we're going to get the closest one is larger and they're gradually getting smaller due to the perspective. If we take a look at the front, this is the front. So the bottom left axis indicator shows you where you are. Right, you see this little indicator down here? So right now you look at the C-axis, the blue one. We're only seeing Y and X, and we're straight on the Z-axis. So that's what we're seeing here in the front. You can see the axis indicator showing the same down here. So, but if I start moving these over, so let me just move these out of the way. Maybe just snap these ones as well. Yeah, just snap these once, and we'll snap this once, and we'll snap this once. So obviously here you see in the front view, they appear the same size, even though, and they are the same size, but in the perspective view, obviously, due to the perspective, they will appear smaller. So it's just like all these orthographic cameras, they're simply put, they only have two axes. So one of the axes is missing completely. It's very good for telling proportions. Very bad for telling perspective. There's no perspective. But if you want to measure these proportionally to each other, this is the way you would do it. And it's also good for placement. So you see, when I was doing this, I was snapping over here. Like I was snapping using the perspective view. But I could also just use the top view, for instance. It might be easier. Very, very easier to see. Right? So this is just getting your mind around using orthographic cameras when you want to challenge yourself in the lab sessions that you have. You know, make sure you try these things out. Any questions about that? Orthographic cameras just means they're lacking an axis. All right. So let's just try to get started with sort of what you will be doing in the lab assignment. So I'll make some sort of building just using primitives. So again, I'm holding D, snapping to the bottom, and then I'm going to snap holding X to the grid, and then maybe I'll just center the pivot for the fun of it. And then I can freeze the transformations, and I can delete history. So if I always have those here, I can quickly just reset everything. 3 buttons, that's it. But I'm not going to mind doing that with every piece here as I move. But so let's scale this one. I'm just made a copy, Control D. I can copy this one. So I'm scaling it, pressing R. I'm in the scale tool. I can scale in Y, and then there is a way. The middle one obviously scales everything uniformly, right, up or down, right, making it bigger or smaller. But there is a way to actually scale only in these two axes and not the third one. So that's actually holding control, scaling in the axis you don't want to scale in. So if I'm holding control over the Y, it's only going to scale in X and Z. So that's very helpful because I can go like this, and then holding control, I can go like that. Very efficient. And I can also compare this. Let's go to the top view, and I'll go number 4. This is my wireframe. Like if I wanted to measure this, you have to get used to this. So using wireframe, shaded view, and then maybe the front view, I can go in here and just put that on top of here. And again, if I wanted to be precise, what I would do just quickly, I could hold D, I can hold V, I can snap this to the bottom, and then I can hold V again, but in object mode, snap to the top vertex. Then I can center the pivot. Right? Okay. So that's just scaling in object mode, but if I it's the same for the vertices, right? So if I grabbed all the verts, I can scale them the same way. Is this making sense? All right. So I'm just make a copy of this again. I will just grab the top face and I'll move that up. Then I'll go to vertex mode. I'll grab these 4 verts and I'll scale them towards each other. Maybe we'll scale this down a little bit. Something like that. Whatever. And sometimes you can just place some meshes into other meshes, so they're intersecting. That's actually okay. It's not technically incorrect to do that. Sometimes we'll get used to this when we're making assets. Sometimes we need to construct everything from one mesh, right? So from one single object, you need to create everything. So that could be for anything that's like welded together. And you have to think about how is it constructed in reality, and if it's all welded together, if it's one solid piece, then obviously we should model it that way. But in a lot of cases, you're dealing with assets and objects that are actually made up of several different objects. So then it's totally fine to do that in CG as well. Just have several different objects that are just put together. Sometimes they could even be intersecting like this. It's actually okay. All right, I'm just going to copy this one, and I'm going to scale it down. I'm going to hold Control and scale in X and Z at the same time. Then just place that there. Maybe I want a base for the chimney, so we'll do copy this one. I'll scale holding Control, scale in X and Z. I'll scale it down. There's the base. I don't know how a chimney works. Maybe it's on top, right? I don't know. Doesn't matter. Feel free to use references for this if you want. But the point here today or tomorrow, for those of you doing the lab session then. Oh, actually, so who's the representative for games? Class representative. Class representative? You don't? He bailed. Oh, okay. Anyways, so you need to tell him that he needs to talk to Martin about your lab session. Because I know you're doing this boot camp thing and you can't do the lab session, but you will do the lab session. You will do it next week before Tuesday. You have to do it. You will do it. Yes. You will talk to Martin and he will arrange a time that you can both agree on. Even if it's at night, you will do it. All right. So, okay, I made a house. Looks nice. How can I get a ground? I can take a look at all the different primitives I have, polygons. Oh, we have a plane. Let's not do that yet. Let's look at the outliner. Okay, so the house currently consists of all these. I just made these from cubes. I'm not gonna. Okay, yeah, all right. We don't have time now. We have like 10 minutes left. But yeah, I could name all this. It's helpful. This could be my house base. This is my whatever, and this is. You just double click and you name it. Obviously, that becomes very important and very very important to keep structured. But for now, let's. And I would like you to do this. Once you're happy with a piece, name it, and that's it. And the other thing you must get used to doing, center the pivot, freeze the transformations, and delete history on all these objects. So if I just select all of them, I can do it like that, or I can do it from the outliner. Do these three little operations, and good, good, good. Okay, how can we group these together? We can hit Control G. Now they're in group 1. This could be house 1, right? Okay, so if I expand house 1 group, we can see all these ones are inside the house 1 group. I can still select them individually. I can even move them around. I can change them if I wanted to. But if I select the group, I will select everything. So the group is just another transform node, again, that I can move around, that has all the stuff in it. Control G, okay? If you want to move something out of the group, so let's make a copy of this house base, but I do that mistakenly. Oops. Control C to undo. I move it over here. See, it's part of the group. It will be moved when I move it. It will rotate with the group. It will scale with the group. But I don't want it there. I can delete it. But let's say I want it, but I don't want it in the group. Okay, middle mouse button, click and drag, and you can drag it out of the group like that. I can also middle mouse button, click and drag it into the group. Or I can hit Shift P, which is unparent. Shift P will put it outside the group. You will be using the outliner a lot in this assignment, so you have to figure this out. Any object you don't want in the group anymore, Shift P, unparent. It's out of the group. You want it back in the group, middle mouse button, click and drag, drop it on the group icon. Now it's in there. How do I get it out? Shift P. All right, delete it, don't need it. Brilliant. Okay, so I can obviously also copy groups. Now, very nice. I already put number 1 at the end, so it's automatically going to make incremental numbers. So I could do a little street, house 3. Maybe I'll scale them a little bit, just quickly. Maybe whatever. Offset them. House 4. Put that over here. So, okay, very nice. What if you wanted like window frames or something? Let's get rid of all these houses. Let's make a window. So currently, okay, so house 1 is done. I'm happy. Let's save it. Let's save this thing. This is very important. This is crucial. You have to do this. Save scene. Okay, but we also have to make a project. A lot of information today. Project window. In Maya, we don't only save the scene, we also create a project structure. So, do you know how to access WinGyver? Oh, okay. So this is 160830. CG art 1. Lecture 1. That's my project name. Then I could go here. You can't store things locally on the computers. They're going to be wiped. I think you can use your external drives if you want, but you won't because we'll be using WinGyver. At least you will make it a habit to dump things over to WinGyver. So you write this WinGyver. That's what you write. Don't worry, they'll help you out with this in the lab. All right. Cannot be found. Okay. I have to get rid of that C, don't I? WinGyver, obviously. So MMT. This is not working. Okay. There it is. So this is just the server that we are using. Have I made something here? No. Uh, uh, I will make a folder for you to drop things into. Don't put it here, I think. I'll figure this out. Don't. All right. Anyways, so you just assign a project path, select, that's the path. This is my project name. And these are all the subfolders that Maya will create for you. So you will get a folder called scenes, asset, images, blah, blah, blah. Okay, just whatever, just accept. You get a lot of folders, that's fine. So then we go to teaching, lectures. I put it in here. So I just put it, didn't I put it in there? Yeah, I did. So this is my Maya project. So I would probably, I would make a new folder, Maya projects, and then I put this in there. But essentially, this is now the root path of this project. So this is why it becomes important to keep structured, especially when we start texturing. There's a lot of image files, a lot of associated file types to your project. So you don't want to just have files flying around. You need to be structured and make this project folder. All right. So take a look inside. Here's all the subfolders that Maya created for you. So scenes is where you should put your scene files. So we currently have no scene. If you look in there, there's nothing. So if I quit Maya and I don't save, I have done nothing except make a project folder with nothing. So we made a project folder. Now we have to save the scene. So then I save the scene. And then you see it should go automatically to this path, which we've established. And it goes directly to the scenes folder because that's where Maya wants its scenes. So we have two options to save the scene. We have the binary or the ASCII. The binary, if you're a machine, that's great. And ASCII, if you're a human, that's nice. So you can open that in like Notepad and read. And if something happens to your file, it can be fixed. You can change the code. All right. So let's do ASCII. For us, it doesn't really matter. Something you care about, you should name it MA file. All right. Okay. So yeah. So then you'd save the scene. Lecture 1 or 1. Oh, yes, question. Yes, no, eventually. So you want to, one thing that's important is to save incrementally, incremental saves. So when you're working on the project, let me do something. I'll make another house. Maybe I don't want to just save the same scene, right? I don't want to just keep hitting save, 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 and having one file. The big problem with that is that sometimes these files get corrupted. So when we try to open that file, it doesn't work. And you've been working, and you say, I worked for half a year on this thing and I can't open it. Well, maybe you should have done incremental saves. Yeah, question. Right. Use underscore. Yeah, 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 yeah. Yeah. No. Adrian's making great points, and I'm just the naming conventions are very important. Very important. And when you're working on a project, typically you'll have a TD, a technical director, who should be very specific about the conventions that the group should adhere to. Me being more whimsy, I'm not the best at this, but I also adhere to it. Okay, so I should make a very strict point. Yeah, underscores are nice. Incremental saves, very important. Okay, so that's that number at the end. There's 2 digits, which would allow me to have 99 versions. If you're working on a huge project, you want to have 100 versions, maybe we'll do 3 numbers. Right? Just then they will all appear in the file structure after each other. It might be problematic if you had only 2 numbers for some. But 99 versions, come on, that's enough for us, right? So O2, save as Now I have two versions of this scene. So I can also, what the other nice thing about saving incrementally is that I can revert back. So if I'm not happy with a certain direction the project took, or for you guys, when you, okay, so more information about this later, but you will be doing a report. Very simple. Don't worry about it. It's a very simple report, very just to show what you did. But then, it's helpful to go back in time. So I can go, oh, this is the first thing I did. It's nice to be able to do that. All right. Good. Yeah, good point. Any questions? Yeah, no Icelandic letters. Yeah, good point. Good point. In Maya, also for Norwegians, you don't use a, o. No Icelandic letters, nothing like that. Very important, actually, because the code is not meant for this, and it can also cause corrupt scene files. Okay. Very good point. Very good point. Stick to English. Let's use English as the working language in Maya, just so that everyone understands and we avoid any artifacts. Right? Okay. We're done. Let me just think quickly if there's something we absolutely have to mention. We did not have time to look at the hypershade or the materials or the lights or do any rendering, which is fine. I didn't really think we would have time, but it's okay. You don't have to do a render. I think you will be busy enough doing this. Oh, no, 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 no. Before you go, we have to do this. We have to do this. I have to show you this. We will extend this class 5 minutes. I will hide this house. This is very important when you're going to do your lab project. You're not going to be able to do it. You can hide groups or anything in the outliner hitting Control H for hide. Now it's hidden. It's not there. It's there, but it's grayed out. Shift H unhides. Okay, so Control H, I will hide it. And that's important because sometimes you want to free up space to be working on other things. You could also do a display layer like we talked about earlier. But a quick and easy way, you can hide things. Control H. So, but let me actually just very quickly make something that would resemble a window or something, just so we get the idea of having multiple groups and groups within groups, which is fun. Oh, yeah, no time to explain anything. Let's just, you can enter numerically, right? You know that. So 90, I can rotate 90 degrees. This is what I want you to do. I want you to be creative with this. Just make these simple solutions. Yep, whatever. So, okay. So that's my window. But then again, I'm going to freeze center pivot, freeze transformations, delete history on all these. It's just maybe there's no history. I don't know, but whatever. I make it a habit. I do that, and then Control G to group it. This is my window. My window 1. Let's just move that out of the way for now. The group. I must select the group node. And then Control Shift H to unhide the house. Then we have the window 1. Actually, let's rename this house 1 to house body. Right? Then this will be window 1. Let's use the top view. I'm pressing spacebar. And I can just move that using this. And I can use the front view. So remember the orthographic cameras might make placement easier. And I can also scale the entire group node. Whatever, you get the idea. And then what I want you to do, obviously, make something that makes sense. So I can keep this going, and I can rotate this entire thing 90 degrees in Y. Using the top view, I can place it over here. And using the side view this time, it will really give me an indication of where that window is. See, using these two at once, copy this entire group again. Now I have 3 windows. Okay, see, that's what happens. Very beautiful. And then we have all these groups. We're going to group all those groups. So I'm selecting all these groups, shift selecting all the groups, Control G, and we have the house 1. Now I can copy house 1, I have house 2, and house 3, and whatever. So you get the idea. We have groups within groups, right? So this is the hierarchy. Same thing here. If I wanted this group out of the group, Shift P, that group is now out of the group. Wonderful. All right. Now this is getting crazy, so it's better to save another version. 03. Okay. All right. Any concluding questions? Yeah. You can go as crazy as you want. The crazier, the better. But try to stick to only manipulating the components. So we're not going to be using modeling tools. So that the challenge is how intricate can you get it only manipulating the components and the objects. Yeah. No surfacing. No. No, we didn't have time for that. Let's not do it. Yep. Question. I'm sorry. Quiet down a little bit. We have a couple of minutes. What's that? No, you have to use Maya for this assignment. Oh yeah, okay, yeah. You can import Maya's scenes into other scenes. That's what you mean? Yeah, definitely. Yeah, or yeah, we'll talk about that later. Objects you can export. Question? Yeah. So if we can have all the class representatives come over here after the class, and we will communicate this. I don't know. Okay. All right. Thank you.